Hey, it's me, Katie. Today we are going to talk about what is the best suburb to live in on the North Shore of Chicago. So today I have Warrick with me, who is an agent on my team and my business partner, and also a North Shore resident. Hey, Warrick, it's going to be a good conversation.
How you doing? I think it's
Good.
good, and I have some experience in this. So
Do you? So do I. So first, let's just start off by saying how we know what we know, okay? Lived on the North Shore for over 50 years and specifically in Northbrook. Went to school there, grade school, high school. My kids went to school there, public and private. Served on the village board for a couple of years, volunteered, was very active. And I literally know thousands and thousands of people in Northbrook. So being in Northbrook has made me know the North Shore pretty well. I did go to Glenbrook North High School. So Warrick, tell us how you know the North Shore.
yeah, so I moved here from South Africa, and we moved straight to Wilmette. And how my parents chose Wilmette was because of the schools. I went to an all-boys private school in South Africa, and my parents were looking around, and obviously this whole area has great schools. But with that private school mentality, my brother was a bit older, so he went straight into Loyola. I was younger, so I went into Wilmette Junior High. So I lived in Wilmette. We rented a home, then we bought a home in Wilmette. From there, I decided to stay in the public school system because I met friends, and moving countries is a whole other thing. So my brother went through Loyola, I went through the Nutria schooling, but then 2 homes in Wilmette, moved to Glencoe, lived in Glencoe, finished out high school there. From there, I went to college, and I wanted to come back to this area. So I found a home, a knockdown in unincorporated Northbrook. So I bought that. That was my first home. Then I moved into incorporated Northbrook, and then I sold the business, and then I moved into deeper part of Northbrook. So I've lived in a lot of places.
And you're actually in the little tiny area in Northbrook that goes to Nutria.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm in the weird section of Northbrook. Northbrook's probably the biggest North Shore town out of all of them, and it has a lot of different high schools there. So you got to know that as well, because there's Wheeling, a little bit of Wheeling, a little bit of Nutria, a little bit of everything in this area. But I chose the Nutria district of Northbrook because because of the school, just because I went.
Okay, so we do not know what each other is going to say about this. So we're just going to have a real discussion about the best suburbs to live in on the North Shore of Chicago. So the suburbs on the North Shore are, we're going to start Wilmette, Winnetka, Kenilworth, Northfield, Glenview, Northbrook, Deerfield, Highland Park, Glencoe. We're going to say Lake Forest, Lake Bluff, and Bannockburn is kind of in there. I left out Highwood, which is on the North Shore. Not necessarily people think it's on the North Shore. So we're going to talk about this and what makes a great suburb. I don't know. What makes a great suburb? You know, we've sold a lot of homes, hundreds and hundreds of homes, thousands of clients moving into and out of the North Shore. Specifically, what makes a suburb on the North Shore good?
Yeah, and I really think it depends on what you're looking for, right? And it also depends on where you are in your family stage, how young your kids are, how old they are, and if you have kids or not. So it's going to be very personal, but I would say if you're looking for somewhere with a lot of activity, restaurants, beaches, and so on, Wilmette is a great place to start. There is the cheaper side of Wilmette, which is normally the west side of the tracks, if you will, and that's the Metro train track. But it's also a great location for commuting to downtown because the L starts in Wilmette, and you also have the Metro. So you have 2 different commuter stations there, and you have a good price range. You can get homes at about 500,000-600,000 all the way up to about 15-20 million. So Wilmette has that range, but it has a great downtown, lots of new restaurants, with a lot of money in there.
Yeah.
It has the beaches, it has the parks, it has the community centers. It's got a lot to offer. It's also a big town.
And the thing about Wilmette too is we didn't include Evanston on the list of North Shore communities because Evanston is kind of like its own urban area and its own little city, but they do have a lot of restaurants in Evanston, a lot of things to do, activities, social events. And so Wilmette is kind of like, if somebody's moving out of the city and they don't necessarily want Evanston, I feel like Wilmette's like the next best thing because they're super close to all these activities, but they're still in the Nutria school district.
Yeah, so, and also if you commute downtown, the 94 is right there. It's a great place. Now, getting to the airport from Wilmette is kind of all over the place. I traveled a lot in my previous career, and when we did that through Wilmette, you have to go all back roads until you get to the 294.
I mean, what is that, like a 45 minute at least?
Yeah, it's a longer commute commute because there's no highway. The 94 doesn't go there. So you're going through Morton Grove, you're going through all those back roads, right? And that's all a lot of lights. So if you're commuting a lot by airplane, maybe not the best. If you're commuting downtown, it's probably one of the best because there's two options, or three if you, 94, L, and Metro.
Great. So I want to talk about all the suburbs though, because when people say, oh, I want to move to the North Shore of Chicago, what sort of happens is they'll go and they'll look and then they'll say, wow, these homes in Winnetka look gorgeous and they're beautiful. And so a lot of people will kind of start with, I found with Winnetka, and Winnetka's gorgeous, right? I mean, it's beautiful.
Home Alone right there. That's where Home Alone was filmed.
It's absolutely gorgeous. And, you know, I was saying before, I don't think there's a bad location in Winnetka.
No, there isn't, but there are definitely expensive and more expensive areas in Winnetka.
That's about all Winnetka is, expensive and more expensive, but it's beautiful. The one thing about Winnetka, I feel like when people are talking to me about Winnetka, it's the taxes, the property taxes are very, very high. Also, the inventory can be very low. And if you're thinking about moving to Winnetka, you know, it is, I think, you know, keeping up with the Joneses for sure. You have to be okay with that, which is fine, but it's, you know, some people are just want to live their own lives, their own space, but it is a community. Like Winnetka is a community, you know.
For sure. I mean, Winnetka also, I think it's going to be hard pressed to get into Winnetka for a decent sized home for anything less than $1 million. You can get in there, but then you're talking smaller property, one car garage.
I don't even think you can get in for, I mean, because even the things that are under $1 million need a lot of work. So you need to have a lot of cash in order to do the work. I mean, you're like minimum 1.5 to get into something decent there, don't you think?
The average home sale in Winnetka is 1.3, and that's saying something when the average is that high. Now, just for property tax reference sake, the Home Alone home just this year went from $32,000 a year in property tax to $51,000. So that's the range we're talking on the property tax. It is substantial. That's a second, third mortgage in most cases.
And you're a boater. Do you have a boat currently?
No, I don't, but I have a space at Wilmette Harbor. That's another thing about Wilmette. There's a harbor in Wilmette. Very hard to get into the harbor. It's a great beach area in Winnetka too.
Right. So let's say you're in Winnetka. Is there a benefit for a boater in Wilmette or Winnetka? Is that more?
So the only benefit is there's a boat launch in Winnetka called Lloyd Beach Boat Launch. You get a discount on launching your boat. That being said, it's still about $100 to just launch your boat. There's no harbor in Winnetka. And even if you were lucky enough to get into Wilmette, it's still a 7-year waiting list to get into the harbor at Wilmette.
Okay.
So if you're thinking about moving in 7 years, put your name down now.
Right. And then the restaurants, the cute downtown Winnetka is super cute.
Yeah, Winnetka has a bunch of restaurants, far less than Wilmette. They kind of have two downtowns, if you will. They separated by Green Bay Road. But yeah, it's also nice little grocery store there, lots of little restaurants, shops, but more higher end feeling than Wilmette.
Okay, so then that takes us naturally to the other town that pretty much shares the zip code with Winnetka, which is Northfield. So Northfield is, I mean, they have the same zip code, but they're totally different communities.
Yeah, completely different. And as I mentioned, the east side of the tracks, Northfield really starts on the other side of the 94. Same zip code. There are some homes, you know, the east side of the 94, but bigger property.
The bigger ones. Yeah.
Bigger properties compared to inside of Winnetka, if you will. So if you
more like a estate type feel.
Yeah, definitely. Now Northfield doesn't have a downtown, but there are some shops and restaurants within Northfield.
Now they've tried over the years to make it look kind of like a downtown, but it's just, they don't have a downtown. And one thing about Northfield is they don't have a train station. That's a downer. They don't have a train station. So if you are in Northfield, you can go into Glenview to the Glen, or you can go into Winnetka to get downtown. They get you into two different stations though. So, but what I will say about Northfield is the community loves the community. It is a tight knit community. You have kids going to the grade school, the junior high all together. So the kids know each other, the families know each other. So if you're looking for like the North Shore, more of an estate type feel, Northfield's really a great place to be. There is some flooding in Northfield. There are some flood zones in Northfield that you just need to be aware of. I don't know if that really matters to some people.
Yeah, and Northfield goes to the Nutria district, right? And I'm in that Northbrook that is really Northfield. So I'm in a weird area. But I tell you, I'm on a bigger road in Northbrook, Northfield. I'm the last house until Northfield starts. But we went into the heart of Northfield to trick or treat, and the sense of community there is crazy. If you think of a typical Halloween movie with families hanging outside trick or treating, that's where you go. The section of Northfield where the parks, the homes are closer together.
They're tighter, smaller, cute.
They're cute. cute, and everyone knows everyone. If that's what you're looking for, that section of Northfield is fantastic, because I tell you, my kids have never had a better trick-or-treating experience than that area.
Yeah.
Everything's so close and everyone's just hanging out together.
So one thing, if you're looking and you decide that you want to be in the New Trier School District and you think New Trier is only Northfield, Winnetka, Wilmette, Glencoe, that's actually not true. There's part of Glenview and there's also a part of Northbrook. So you want to make sure that if you are looking at New Trier, you're setting it up for the correct high school, not just the towns. Because like Warrick was saying, that the location that he lives in is really, I would consider that to be Northfield, even though it's a Northbrook address. So just keep that one in mind.
And we don't want to forget about Kenilworth.
Oh yeah, which we forget about. Kenilworth
is a tiny little town right in between Winnetka and Wilmette, right? If you blink, you might miss it. It's a couple streets wide, but it is very, very, very high end. It's Winnetka on steroids when it comes to pricing. People want to move to Kenilworth, but Kenilworth doesn't have the space to have all the amenities. So a lot of these towns share amenities. So if like Glencoe Beach, if you live in Northbrook, you can get some pricing, residential pricing. So you got to look around at that. But Kenilworth is a small, very expensive area to live. It's also been, I think, in the top 10 wealthiest areas to live in America. So that's Kenilworth.
Yeah. So I asked my husband today what he thought the best. Yeah, I said we were going to do this. And I said, what do you think the best suburb to live in is? He's like, Kenilworth, no question. I said, why? There's, just a lot of money there. But the one thing about Kenilworth is that they have the Sears School. And so all the kids do go to the Sears School, which is the grade school, junior high as well. And so they all know each other. It's kind of like a private school. So Kenilworth is gorgeous, like beautiful apps, but it's not very big. Absolutely. Kenilworth is a good one. Okay. So let's move into Glenview. Warrick, do you know Glenview as much? Probably
not as much. Obviously Glenview has a lot. It's similar to Northbrook in the size of it and all the different things it can offer, but I haven't spent too much time.
Okay. So then I'll talk a little bit more about Glenview. So Glenview, I consider Glenview and Northbrook to be like sister towns, kind of the same types of inventory, kind of the same types of homes, but Glenview is closer to downtown significantly. I mean, if you're in Glenview and you're getting on the Edens, it's significantly closer. In addition, Glenview goes all the way to 294 as well. So it can be very wide. So if you're in West Glenview, you are right at 294. Glenview is interesting in an aspect because it doesn't have like one downtown. It's not like a downtown area necessarily. There are a couple of downtowns sort of. The problem is that I find in Glenview is that almost subdivision area is separated by a very busy road. So like Waukegan or Lake. And so it's not like Northbrook is not really like that. The busy roads kind of surround Northbrook. In Glenview, they kind of go through it. So you've got some great areas there like Glen Oak Acres or the Circles, beautiful, beautiful homes on larger properties. And then East Glenview actually is one of those areas that does go into New Trier as well. If you're looking for New Trier and you maybe are not as, $1.5 million, there are some smaller homes that are split levels over in that area, smaller homes that are affordable to get into. But you got to remember, not everything in Glenview goes to Glenbrook South, which is its main high school. And Glenbrook South is west, so it's pretty far west. Now, a lot of people in Glenview actually choose to send their kids to Loyola and OLPH, Our Lady of Perpetual Help, which is a very, very popular private parochial school in Glenview. Very, very popular. Northbrook has one and Glenview has one. The Glenview one is booming at the seams and the Northbrook one is not as strong. And that's just because that's just that type of community. So there are a lot of kids that go to the private school and then maybe the public high school, or they go to public grade school and then they're going to Loyola. Also, just to mention while I'm on that is that there's also Regina, which is an all-girls school, which is in Wilmette. That's actually where my daughters did go to school. So we commuted all the time. So Regina, I know a lot about. But Glenview, their price points for homes are low to high, and there's quite a bit of inventory. One thing about Glenview is that versus like Northbrook is that the lots can be bigger. So they have more of an opportunity for lots to be larger, kind of east, because like in Northbrook, there's only a certain small area that can be bigger. So if you're kind of looking for bigger lots, East Glenview is kind of a good place to go. The other thing that Glenview has is the Glen. Now the Glen was built in, let's see, when was it built? The 90s? Yeah, it was like the late 90s, I believe. And that is like a planned community. It used to be the Air Force. What was it? The airport there, the naval base there. And they took that and they have townhomes, they have some condos, but they have shops and restaurants as well in the Glen. They have a park and they have have built the school in there as well. Now, those are definitely like planned communities. So when you drive into the Glen, it's definitely a different feel. It is a community. Like people in the Glen love the Glen. Now, the lots in the Glen are not very big. I mean, they have a few larger lots on the golf course, but they're really just not very, very big. So if you move into the Glen, you have to kind of be prepared that your lot may not be as big.
Yeah, but they've definitely built the Glen out to be a walking around community. They got the parks, they got the walking parks, they got the restaurants, the movie theater, the golf
park centers right there.
You don't necessarily need to move leave the Glen area, right? You can stay there all year and have everything. So yeah, I mean, definitely that's one thing to consider is Glenview is cut up by major roads. I've never thought of it that way, but it is. And that's what sections Glenview off in the different.
Right. So they're different kind of like downtown-y areas in each of these different locations, but Glenview is not one tight community. It's lots and lots of different people and everything.
Yeah, it's a complete range. Right?
It is. So, I mean, as far as being on the North Shore, when people say diverse, I would say Glenview is probably maybe the most diverse on the North Shore.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, it's especially that Nutria section of Glenview is completely different to the Glen section, the Glen section of Glenview. It's all over, but it is, it has something that you could find yourself.
Right. And when I say diverse, I mean, it's got something for everybody. Yeah. It's got different income levels. I mean, just a lot of different languages, just a lot of different things in there. Glenview, I can move on to Northbrook unless you've got anything else on Glenview.
No, look, I mean, Glenview is a melting pot. It's got a little bit of everything. If you're looking to get onto the North Shore, that's a great place to start.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so Northbrook is kind of, like I said, similar to Glenview, where their price points are a little bit lower and a little bit higher. I lived in Northbrook my whole life, so you can say love, hate, right? Because isn't that how everything is when you are there for so long? I know Northbrook really, really, really well. Like I've probably been in over 3,000 homes in Northbrook. I can do a market evaluation just by looking at the picture. And then I can probably be like, I was in that house when I was a kid. I know it really well. And in Northbrook, you generally have three types of homes. You have a ranch, a colonial, and a split. Now, they do have some new construction, which is, new, but typically that's what you're going to find is the colonial doesn't have a bathroom in the middle of the kitchen and the family room, or is it an open layout? I mean, that's kind of what we're looking at. So when people kind of come to the North Shore, they're like, oh, they have visions of how the beautiful HGTV home is going to look, and it's going to be modern and big windows and beautiful yard and open layout. And then they get to Northbrook and they're kind of like, where's the open layout? Well, a lot of these homes don't have open layouts because they're just not built that way. So typically what will happen is when I'm working with a buyer and they're coming from the city, it usually takes like a month or two for them just to realize that the type of home they're actually looking for is not built. It literally has not been built. Like you will not be able to find it. So then after they come to that kind of sad realization that maybe they're not going to get the exact house they envision in their minds, then they'll start to look at what the homes there actually are like. Then they adapt and they realize, oh yeah, this is a good one because, it might be open or it might be updated. I don't know, Warrick, have you ever thought about that where people, they kind of feel like we're looking for this and then.
Yeah, I mean, but with that being said, there is more of this in Northbrook than Wilmette and Kenilworth and so on.
Yes.
I've had a couple buyers that want this grand all open floor plan, new construction, but they want to be in Wilmette. We start in Wilmette and then we actually end up in Northbrook because Northbrook has more variety and options for that. But yes, if you're starting in there's that inventory there. It's just not easy to come along. And the ranch, I've lived in a colonial and now I live in a new construction, if you will. I've experienced all of it, but yeah.
And also Glenview and Northbrook prices are less than the Winnetka and Wilmette. So a lot of people think North Shore and then they gravitate towards Glenview or Northbrook because the prices are maybe a little bit more in line. And there is more inventory that I believe comes on because both of those areas are large. They have more properties in general, more people. So more properties are going to come on. Northbrook does have a downtown, but people don't necessarily love the downtown. It's gotten way better since when I was there as a kid. There's the Village Green, which is like the central area. So I did a whole thing on this when I was on the village board, like really trying to figure out what kind of was going on with the downtown. The issue with the downtown is that they're trying to get density downtown so people go to the restaurants and the stores and the supermarkets. But Shermer, I don't know if you know this or get this work, is Shermer goes, from Willow in Glenview, it goes all the way up and it cuts right through downtown Northbrook. And so Shermer ends up getting like 12 to 15,000 cars on it a day. And so it's hard to have a centralized downtown location that's being split by a really, really busy road. I've always thought thought that they should take that road and rework it somehow if they could. But that's part of the problem, is you can't really, and then that butts up with the Village Green. So the problem is that when restaurants or stores open up, there's just not quite a lot of places for them to park. But that's another story. The downtown is significantly better than it has been in years past. They've got some great restaurants, and they have a downtown train station.
Yeah, so they have the metro, they have a downtown. The downtown is nice because there is a park there. There's an ice cream shop, there's bars, restaurants, all there. So you can spend an evening there. You can start out in the park, go get some dinner, go get some ice cream, and end up in the park again. It's great. Also, Glenview and Northbrook are both on the 94 and 294. So if you are an airplane commuter, that is a good place to live because you can get on that. As well as both the 94 and 294 are easy access to Wisconsin. And a lot of our clients have second homes in Wisconsin, and it's great to have that access getting onto the highway, both north and south. Northbrook is massive. We've got many grocery stores. We've got many sections of Northbrook. But yeah, it also, again, it is very diverse area, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a lot of unincorporated space as well. Now, unincorporated space, what that means is, just to break it down, cheaper tax, bigger lots normally. But that means you also get pushed out of all the local amenities that living in incorporated Northbrook, such as the library, such as all of that. Because it has a Northbrook address doesn't mean you get everything that's included. So be sure you know if it's unincorporated or incorporated.
Absolutely. And you hit on one of the things that I think is great about Northbrook is the access points. If you look at it on the map, it's really kind of, you got 94 going around and 294. It is very easy to get downtown or to Wisconsin that way. One thing we didn't mention about the train stations goes downtown into Union Station, but that's also the same line as Glenview has two train stops, one in downtown Glenview and then one in the Glen as well. Just keeping that in mind. I think that's it on Northbrook. Let's move up to Deerfield. How much you know about Deerfield?
Not too much, other than it's also a beautiful place to live.
Deerfield, I view as kind of similar to Northbrook. I don't necessarily feel Deerfield similar to Glenview because Deerfield and Northbrook are close together. If you're in Glenview, you're a lot closer to downtown than you are Deerfield. The housing stock in Deerfield is pretty similar to Northbrook as well. You know, you got some splits, colonials, ranches, some new construction as well. A lot of times, and I'm working with somebody who's coming from the city, is going to be a lot less money, but the taxes are going to be more. So some people who really want the house and they're okay with the taxes are fine in Deerfield. And some people are like, I want to keep the taxes down. They're going to stay in Northbrook. Deerfield also has a train station. Now their downtown is kind of interesting because they actually tore down. Did you know all this? They tore down the whole area at Waukegan and Deerfield Road. They ended up tearing the whole thing down and rebuilding it. So they have a lot of great stores over there and restaurants as well. Anything else you want to add on that?
Yeah, I mean, Deerfield will be on both highways as well. I don't know if it's really on the 4194 there, but there's quick access right there on Deerfield Road. And then also the 294 is easy to get to.
Yeah, you just get on it at Deerfield Road there.
Yeah, Deerfield Road goes to both of them.
So let's move over into Highland Park. Oh, we didn't do Glencoe.
Yeah, so we can start Glencoe and then go north. Glencoe is also, I would say, when you're talking about expensive homes, you got right now in the media, Glencoe is rated one of the most expensive places to live. So it's Glencoe, Kenilworth, Winnetka are the top 3 expensive places on the North Shore, I would say. Glencoe is also pretty big, but it's spread out. Glencoe also has a good downtown with restaurants.
Super cute downtown.
Yeah, and I would say there's also golf courses. It has a lot to offer, but as Katie, this is the last town before Lake Cook Road, which means this is the last town before Cook County. But I lived in Glencoe. I lived in the area where we weren't in walking distance to anything, so we drove. This is also the last town in the Nutria School District as far as north as you can go.
So you were more in west, like in a West Glencoe location? You were in a West Glencoe location?
Yeah, so I was, west, northwest. I was literally the last road in Glencoe before you get out of the school district. And the drive to Nutria is probably one of the longer drives. It's even further than me driving from Northbrook to Nutria. So that's something to keep in mind. The commute is longer. But Glencoe has the beaches. It has the expensive homes. It has but it's very
ravine. You got the ravines between
the
Glencoe and Winnetka.
You have the forest preserve that is shared
Mhm.
among a couple different towns, but there's a great bike path, walking path around there. You got the botanical gardens access where you can walk straight from Glencoe into the botanical gardens, and it's close to the Northbrook shopping. So you just
It is super close to Northbrook. I mean, very, very. I know they're next to each other, but you don't really think that because they're split between 94. But it's very easy access from Northbrook to get into downtown Glencoe.
Yeah, there's no big box stores in Glencoe. I'm talking the grocery stores and so on. There's all mom and pop type stores, but you just go over the highway and then you get access to all of Northbrook.
Yep, Mariano's and everything.
So that is good. You're close to everything in Glencoe there.
Highland Park.
Highland Park probably has one of the biggest downtowns. It is spread out. It also separated by train tracks, but in a nicer way.
In a community feel. Yeah.
Yeah, it's much bigger, and there's a lot of shopping, a lot of restaurants downtown. The train goes through downtown, so it's great for commuting.
It's super cute down there.
Yeah, and then they also have some big box stores there as well, homes on the lake as well, but a lot of diversity in property that you can get in Highland Park.
Absolutely, especially in West Highland Park. Taxes in Highland Park I've seen can get really pretty high.
Yeah, something to think about is when you're trying to figure out the North Shore, you drive on Sheridan Road, and that goes through most of these beach towns or lake shore towns, if you will, and you will feel the difference when you're driving through there. We've talked about Wilmette. Wilmette has some condos we didn't mention about, lots of condos on the waterfront there. Then you go into Kenilworth, and it's nice and high-end feeling. Winnetka's at high-end. When you start getting into Glencoe, property gets a bit bigger. It doesn't get cheaper. There are bigger properties in Glencoe. But then when you get to Highland Park and you keep going north, the properties are bigger and bigger and bigger, more estate-type feeling on Sheridan Road. So they have that feel as well. Country clubs in Glencoe and Highland Park, they share right there.
If somebody says they're looking for like a modern home, something that's more modern and contemporary, I'll usually say, hey, let's start in Highland Park, because they do have some unique, cool housing in Highland Park.
Yeah, I've never thought about it that way, but yeah, definitely that does stand out when you think about it.
Okay, so we're going to talk about two towns right now that really are in the North Shore, but wouldn't be necessarily considered. I guess Bannockburn and Highwood. So I just want to mention Highwood because when you go and look on a map, you're going to see that Highwood is right there. Highwood is where Fort Sheridan is, a former naval base. Housing. Yeah, so they turned that into houses and housing there, which is beautiful and wonderful. Highwood has not necessarily been considered the North Shore. You do have a lot more lower priced homes there as well. But the one thing that Highwood has that is amazing are the restaurants. Like, even if you're in the city and you're like, we need a destination, go into downtown Highwood and you can get so many restaurants there. It's its own little culture there. What do you think about that, Warrick?
Yeah, look, I mean, one thing that stands out for Highwood is the restaurants. We always went to Highwood. It is Green Bay Road or Sheridan to get there, ideally Green Bay Road. It's not a quick drive, but it is a nice area, a nice restaurant scene. And it is it's also that downtown, every downtown here is separated by the tracks. And there's some restaurants on the west side and some on the east side. So be sure you check them both out, but great restaurants down there. I have some winter festivals where they bring in the carnival rides and all of that. It's a nice walking area during that time.
Halloween festival there.
Yeah, the Halloween festival, yeah.
Okay, so Bannockburn, I just want to mention this. There's really not much inventory ever in Bannockburn because it's super small, but it's lots that are 5 acres and bigger. So if you are looking for something really, really big, Bannockburn might be it.
Yeah, I would say if you're not interested in the sense of downtown or a community, you want your private space, you want the land, you have many cars, maybe horses or something like that, you might find that kind of feel in Bannockburn. The lots are big, but there is no walking to your friend's house. There's no walking not like a community. It's just a little small. Okay, so let's go into Lake Forest, and Lake Bluff is further north, and we can say, I mean, Warrick, are you considering that North Shore? Yeah, I mean, Lake Bluff is pushing it, but it's just sections of it. But look, Lake Forest is great. That's also big lots, bigger homes. It has a nice downtown, but it's a very high-end feeling downtown.
Lake Forest is gorgeous, like beautiful, beautiful, gorgeous. When you think like estate homes, big trees, that's one thing they have is they have big lots, big trees, winding roads if you're in East Lake Forest. Now, Warrick, you were not in the industry with this comment I'm going to make is that Lake Forest used to be dead, like homes on the market for 3 years. And I'm not even kidding. Like you would have like 1,500 days on market. Prices were really, really low. Nobody wanted to live in Lake Forest. The young people did not want to move to Lake Forest because the commute from downtown to Lake Forest can get really, really long. I mean, you're talking a minimum of 50 minutes without traffic. So if there's traffic, you could be talking 2 hours. So not a lot of people would migrate from the city to the suburbs, but then COVID hit. And what happened? Lake Forest went crazy. Like everything that had been sitting for 5 years was completely bought out. And now Lake Forest actually is much, much better as far as the prices are concerned. And they are expensive. There is East Lake Forest and then there's West Lake Forest. So East Lake Forest is like East Lake Forest, like beautiful on the water. West Lake Forest is still very, very nice, but sometimes there can be that dividing line for people. Oh, do you live in East? If do you live in East Lake Forest or West? Now, West Lake Forest is going to have newer homes, but the lots are still nice and big and solid. And you do have really good access to 294 from West Lake Forest. Anything else you want to add on that?
Yeah, look, Lake Forest, I think I would have lived in Lake Forest, but it is far from everything. It is a commute to everything, but it is great, big land. It has that old money feeling. Some of those homes are very old homes. So if you're looking for an older, bigger home, that's a great place to start.
Absolutely. And then Lake Bluff is further north. So it's even further north. But, you know, and I will admit, I don't know as much about Lake Bluff, even though it is just super cute. The homes are not quite like Lake Forest, but you can get a little closer to the lake, not spending as much money. In Lake Forest, it's really hard to get close to the lake and not spend, you know, what, a couple million? I mean, really? In Lake Bluff, you can, you know, because there's small homes. There are some small homes near the lakefront, which is nice. And they have cute little restaurants downtown area as well. I mean, it's a haul from the city, but that's also a nice sense of community as well.
Look, as you can tell, we are more familiar with the areas from Wilmette all the way to Highland Park. When it gets up there, we've been in those areas. It's just it's a different feeling up there. All fantastic areas. They are great areas to live on the North Shore. I think if you're looking to get into the North Shore, Glenview, Northbrook is a great place to start because they spread to a bunch of different high schools. So that's something to keep in mind. But keep in mind, the town you're in doesn't dictate the school you go to. So search by schools.
Agreed.
If you're looking for the schools in this area because they all kind of have these weird little borders.
Yeah, agreed. And a lot of people, when they start to look at the North Shore, I usually will direct them to what high school do you want to be in. That's kind of where you start and look. Now, all the schools on the North Shore are good. Like there's nothing that's not good, but they are different. You know, there's different fields. New Trier, for example, I mean, what do they have? 5,000 students now?
Yeah, I mean, and New Trier is split by 2 campuses. There's a freshman campus that's in Northfield, and then there's the rest of the campus that's in Winnetka. So that's also something to keep in mind.
Yeah. So, you know, that's a really, really big school. So if you're thinking, you know, your kid is going to play basketball at New Trier, there's a good chance that he or she will not because of the competition. Now, with that being said, they've won, I think, every single state title except for football, maybe. I think my husband told me that. You're right. Like, that is a great place.
Look, they have great programs there.
Yeah,
right?
fantastic.
So if you want to be active, New Trier is a great school. All these schools are great.
All of them
right?
are.
They have fantastic amenities. Don't worry about that. But they are, you know, they have strengths and weaknesses in certain areas. So just look into that and then figure it out. Now, I must say my first 2 homes I didn't buy because of the schools because I didn't have kids. So moving from the city and you don't have kids may not be an issue. It all depends on how long you're looking to stay. I've normally moved every 3 to 5 years, so I wasn't worried about it. But keep that in mind. If you're planning to buy a home and stay for 10, 15 years, then you're going to want to think about the schools now because moving because you're in the wrong school district isn't going to be fun.
We did not actually answer the question. What is the best town on the North Shore of Chicago?
And I really think that's going to depend on everything we talked about and how you want to interact with your community. They are all fantastic in their own right and way. But I do recommend you start looking at all of them and you work your way through them and get somebody that can help guide you to what you're looking for. And a good place to start is start in Wilmette and go north and west, and then you'll be able to get a feel for all of them.
Okay, that wasn't the the real answer. But that was a good answer. That I actually agree with that, because the best town is the one that fits your personality and your family's lifestyle and what you like. Do you like to be closer to people? Do you like more of a sense of community? Do you want more land? Do you want more privacy? So that's, for me to say the best, it's hard because I don't know what you like. Now that I know Warrick, I know where I'd put him, right? And that's probably the house that he has, but, which is more land and newer. I would not put him into a downtown, Winnetka small lot, even though it'd be newer, so that's part of what we try and do, is to understand and ask these questions. With that being said, I'm actually going to come up with something. I would say that for me, I also wanted to probably move to Lake Forest. We had thought about moving to Lake Forest. We thought about actually moving to Kenilworth and Winnetka. And I think that Northbrook, for my love-hate of it, right? Because I just know so much about it, but is really that it does have a wide, diverse area of smaller homes, bigger homes. You can find your sense of community. The transportation from Northbrook is probably, I'd say, the best on the North Shore. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, definitely.
Probably the best. Some things, that could be improved upon, but I'm probably biased because that's where I grew up my whole life. So that's kind of my point. That's Warrick's point, is that it's about what is best for you and your lifestyle and your family. So as you can see, we know a lot about the area, the homes. I hope this has answered your questions about the North Shore of Chicago. One thing when we're working with people is the first place we like to start is a no obligation free 20-minute consult call with either me or Warrick. Basically going through these questions. Do you like larger lots? Do you want privacy? We send out a buyer questionnaire. How do you like to live? Do you like to entertain? Is being close to your neighbors important, or do you want a lot of privacy? So we do that. Even if you're not going to work with us, we still are more than happy to sit down and talk with you. And even if you're looking anywhere in the whole country, we can talk to you and advise you on how to find an agent or how to go about buying a property, because we feel like we're real estate consultants across the country, not just in our local area. Warrick, anything you want to add about that?
Yeah, so one thing I like to do with my clients is after that first call, I'll give them a weekend itinerary of what I think based on that conversation they should do. And that includes going to walk in this park, going to this restaurant for lunch, going to this restaurant for dinner, and then get that feedback, because I know the vibes in all of these parks during those times. And if they like it, fantastic. I know what to work with there. If they don't like it, great. There's other options. And I'll send them another week itinerary. Making a home purchase is not impulse purchase, right? So you want to make sure when you have that commitment and you love that house, is that house you love in the right area? Because you don't want to buy a house in the wrong area just because you like the house, because that just changes the whole vibe. So getting to know our clients is a must, so we can help guide you to the right area for you.
Absolutely. And I do recommend, driving the areas first and making sure that you like them, because the young buyers nowadays, especially people moving from the city, I found, rely completely on the pictures. And these pictures, we're really, really good at making these pictures look not like the house. And so people are really surprised and upset when sometimes they get to the house and they realize it's not what it is. Specifically, like an example would be, you don't know if there are low power lines right outside the house. You don't know if there are no sidewalks in an area. So those are the things, even if you're not quite ready to go and actually engage an agent, I really, really recommend you got to start driving by. Just drive by houses that are actually on the market. And then you can see, okay, this house is 500. This house is $1 million. Oh gosh, if we want to be over in this area of town that we love, we're going to have to spend $2.5 million. It gives you great opportunity. In order to find your house, you really do have to put in the time and the research, but you also need an agent who is your partner. Whether you were to use us or somebody else, you have to make sure that you're engaging them early, have a conversation with them. Sometimes we talk to people 2 to 3 years before they're actually ready to move. Down below, you're going to see that I have a link to our calendar. Feel free to go ahead and set an appointment with us. No obligation, no worries at all. We also have a website there. There is a link there that you can go and search for just Northshore Homes. You don't even need to register on our site. You can just go search for homes on our website. And we're always there for you. We've got a lot of great information that is coming out on our channel. Please make sure you like and subscribe to this. If you're really, really wanting to understand the area, if you're I call them professional amateur real estate agents, people who know the industry really well, please like and subscribe. Anything in closing, Warrick?
Yeah, I just want to emphasize, find someone that you work well with and make sure they're showing you all the possibilities, because you don't want to end up in a home that doesn't fit your lifestyle and community. But do research. This is a fun experience. It should be fun. So make sure you find somebody that helps you make it fun and enjoyable. But if you have questions, reach out anytime.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Thanks everybody for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. We got a lot of great stuff coming out. Thanks for watching.